How's it going there? Welcome to our first Google Hangout. My name is Zach Farmer. I'm the class of '08, and today we're going to be hanging out with John Koller. He's the Vice President for Marketing over at Sony PlayStation, and he's also class of '95. So how's it going, John?
I'm good. Hopefully you guys can all see okay. I'm in a big empty room, so it's kind of just me, but good to see all of you guys.
And thanks a lot for getting a chance to kind of like sit down with us and do the first one of this. And I think a lot of people will be pretty excited about kind of what you'll be able to kind of offer and kind of tell about not only the marketing industry in general, but also about how the video game industry has also kind of changed over the course of the last like 20 years or so.
Yeah, happy to. A lot of things happening right now. A lot of things have changed since I got out of St. Mary's and got into the gaming industry.
All right, so first off, kind of explain, what does your job entail on a general scale?
I literally just play games all day. That's all I do. No, I'm just kidding. Most people think that, actually, so that would probably actually sync up with what they think. Actually, don't play as many games as I would like to. But my job, I oversee the brand marketing and product marketing for PlayStation in North America. So that's US, Canada, and Latin America. And that means all the Marcom, so any kind of advertising you might see from PlayStation, the integration of consumer insights into making the product. So a lot of the work we did went into making the PS4 and what the PS4 is today, and it's increasingly going into our virtual reality product, which is coming out this fall. And portfolio management, which means that we try to time and get the right game to come out at the right time for the right person that'll be in the market. And so I oversee those areas, and it's pretty extensive. I think that from that, I also have other kind of side areas. I oversee our merchandise line, our licensing, our peripherals. I'm kind of the exec producer on our original content series now. Oversee our CSR responsibilities at PlayStation as well. So pretty full featured. So not as much time to play as I'd like, but yeah, so it's a fun position.
Kind of going over how the community, the video game community has changed over the years, and how kind of like the expectations there were maybe 15 years ago to 10 years ago to 5 years ago, how that's changed not only from an interior point of view, but also on the consumer side.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I've been at PlayStation since '98. So a lot has changed in the world since then. Even the people we speak with, we do as we were creating the PS4, we had a video that showed of people that were born in like 97, 98 on, the kind of Gen Z, as you would call it, and the turmoil they've seen in the world, just everything that's gone on, life, and how they view spending on things like games, and how they look at everything. And it's so different than all the other generations that have come before it. So, I'd say, first of all, the culture in the world has changed. But gaming too, like I got here during the middle of the PS1 years, and PS1 was an unbelievable hit. But we like to have this is a really interesting story. But PlayStation was always viewed as a startup under the Sony umbrella, and there was risk associated with it. Sony Corp wasn't sure it was going to make it. It obviously made it really well, and now it's one of the top performers underneath the Sony umbrella. But at the time, there was this whole question mark, and games weren't as big as they are today. You fast forward to where we were developing the PS3, and my team helped work on that. We didn't have social media even in 2004 when we made the PS3, and yet we're still selling the PS3 today. So you see, like, gaming can transcend a lot of things. And then going into PS4, the way that people change, the way games are played now is increasingly with opportunities like Twitch, and you're probably hearing a lot about esports. These areas where people really want to watch others play. There's a participatory, but also a spectating area that's not unlike what you see in other sports, and that you watch, athletes and people participate in kind of active stick and ball sports. So those are things that have changed too. And obviously the graphics have gotten to the point where if you walk in and someone's playing a PS4 game, a lot of times, you get the question of what racing show are you watching, or who's playing in that baseball game, and it's actually a video game.
And kind of explain, with E3 coming up next week, what kind of role do you play in kind of marketing, what you're going to be doing there, and then also what has been an exhibitor activation that has that you've organized that really stands out to you?
Yeah, so at E3, a lot of things are happening next week. We have a lot of announcements coming out of our press conference, and most of those announcements fall into my group. Things that we're doing around VR, things that we're doing around great games coming for the console and for other areas of the business. So those all kind of roll to me. So I kind of have to, in some ways, dictate what we want to talk about, how we want to talk about it. Importantly, I think in marketing, you want to have a tone of voice, you want to have a point of view for your brand, and those are all come through my group. And we do a lot of work there. The in terms of an activation that worked really well, I think was that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. Gosh, we've had tons. I think a big one that works great is when we went on a college tour, and I would have loved to hit St. Mary's, incidentally, but we hit mostly in the South, but we did college against college and set up kind of an esports tournament so you could play Texas against Texas A&M and Alabama against Auburn and those kinds of things, because a lot of the grassroots for gaming starts in the colleges, as you know, and I know, and hopefully the people watching are still in school know. You just walk down the hall in the dorms and you're handing a disc to somebody, you're playing Madden, you're sharing that disc and everybody's playing, and so that was just enormous. It didn't hurt that we had playmates that were kind of facilitating it. We made, and it was at bars, and so we ended up having this thing that just kind of exploded on us. It was fantastic. But we have a lot of outreach. I think a lot of the brand activations we do are done in a way to feel really authentic. Right now we're on the road with a mobile truck, and we're actually going across the country showing virtual reality. A lot of people have not tried it, and once they do, they're absolutely blown away. So that's something that's just started 2 weeks ago, and may come here to Northern California here soon. So encourage everybody who wants to try it to get in there. It's amazing.
Now, kind of going back, kind of talk about like being in the video games when you were younger and kind of how you transitioned into the field itself.
Yeah, so St. Mary's was a really interesting component of that story. I mean, I worked in PR during my time at St. Mary's, and I was actually at the 49ers for a couple years, from my junior and senior year at St. Mary's to my first year out. And from that, I kind of decided I'm not sure I want to stick in PR, because I kind of like doing a lot of the strategic work, getting in front of things and planning and seeing marketing communications in action. And so my boss at the time, Rodney Knox, one of the great PR people of all time, had really done a great job at the Niners, said there's no money in this unless you're a player. And additionally, if you want to do marketing strategy, PR is not for you. You may want to start looking at gaming. And the only thing I had done in gaming is really just played it. I mean, I think we all played it in college and had a great time. But he's like, Sony's starting, and it was, I got out in '95. PlayStation started in '95. So if you think about it, like that's where things kind of kicked off for us. And I got into a group that was acquired by Electronic Arts for a couple of years right after school, and then I hopped over to PlayStation from there. And it's an industry that's a lot of fun. I mean, I think it's so big that a lot of people obviously realize that. And interesting stat: 72% of Americans play games, and we always say the other 28% are lying. So that's that's kind of where the industry is. And a lot of people want to come in and play, but at the time it was kind of looked at this as the big kid in the basement of his mom's house playing games kind of thing. That's all changed so much since then. But I got in, and again, like I said earlier, the early days of PlayStation 1, and have kind of been heavily involved here ever since. And it's really, really fun industry to be a part of. And
I guess kind of describe maybe like some of the key attributes as you kind of gone through the field and whatnot. What have been some like workplace attributes that you kind of wanted to emulate that you've seen, and how have you been able to apply some of those?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing that I took out of some of the marketing classes I had at St. Mary's, and don't hate me because I got my MBA at Santa Clara additionally, so I just use some of those things too. Sorry, everybody. I still root for St. Mary's in every sport, so don't worry. But the things I think I take out of all of the academic side is collaboration is critical. We're thin by design. We're a very proud Japanese company, and in that I mean that we do not load up labor. We've got kind of multi-hat people who do a lot of different things under one kind of job title. I'm one of them. And you need to collaborate. You need to matrix. And if you can't do that, you can't communicate well under that, auspice, this probably isn't a great industry for you. The other publishers are all that way too. If you look at EA, look at Activision, you look at even, I probably wouldn't include Microsoft there because they're so big, but Nintendo, we're all relatively thin if you look at us compared to other industries. So you have to be able to work in project teams. You have to be able to communicate well. And I think that's smart. That's a big part of the intelligence, I think, of people coming in. The other thing I'd say is, for those who are getting out of school and are getting into whatever industry it is, really have a fine sense, we call it business acumen, but have an understanding of what that business does. I think one thing that and we're finishing our reviews right now here with everybody in my team and everybody in the company, but one thing I always really rate highly is if people can come in and really have a firm understanding, these are the KPIs, or these are the things that will make this company successful, and have a firm understanding of what we're trying to do, mission, values, and goals. It really takes you a long way, because if it takes you a couple of years to figure that out, you're losing a lot of cycles that could go towards really helping the business. So that's another thing I put out there.
And then kind of working off of that point as well, what does the word values mean to you, and which do you think are more important or higher on the priority list?
Yeah, I mean, I think for values, the big thing we look at is accountability, and that takes a lot of forms. One of the big ones is that you'll raise your hand and say, something went wrong here, and I'll put it on my shoulders. We'll fix this, and you come back and you actually address it and fix it up. Everybody makes mistakes. You never turn the rifles inward on someone at a company, but you do want to say, look, you made a mistake. Like, let's go back and fix it. Let's get this thing addressed. And I think being receptive to that's really important. And I think another thing is really being results driven. You have to have a passion. You have to really love what you do. I'm a big proponent of that. If you don't have a passion for the brand you're working for, or you don't have a deep love for at least some of your work, you probably should move on. It's really hard, I think, in today's culture, particularly if you're here in the Silicon Valley, where it's really about driving innovation, really trying to get out in front of culture, to not really have a deep love for what you're doing. If you don't, you're going to be working long hours and really dreading it. So, those are two that I think are really, really important. And then, honesty and being trustworthy and all those things, I think, are fairly base level values you have to have in anything. You don't want to have somebody that's only a politician, only speaks about what the person in front of them wants to hear. Go out there and actually, make a case and a recommendation or rationale for what you believe in, your boss.
And professionally, like, as time kind of rolls along, like, how have your goals changed, and in what respect in what ways do those changes actually happen?
Well, I mean, I think there's certainly the professional goals and the personal goals. Professionally, they get, as you progress in your career, they become more and more strategic, I think, in terms of looking out over 5, 6, 7 years and seeing how you want to drive a business. That certainly changes any of your goals. I think when you're younger, you're at a manager level or maybe lower, usually you're more tactical. So you're more in a 12-month cycle and saying, I've got to get this marketing plan out, or get this product out. I've got to operationalize it. But I think as you go along, you have to take a longer view. Good example is, we started working on the PS4 in 2007, and it launched in 2013. It took 6 years for us to actually do work. The guy who sits right next door to this room and I would sit in people's attics and watch how they play games for hours at a time. That's a really interesting thing, by the way, if any of you ever try that. But you have to look at the long game as you move up. Virtual reality is another one. I'll tell you, 4 years ago, we looked at the first version of what today will be PlayStation VR, or in October, PlayStation VR rather, and it was a science project. There's wires all over the place, and we had no vision at the time of what that could be in our class, right? So, which was by definition a real small launch, and we had to really expand our view. We had to change our goals. So, that's another example. Personally, your goals have to change too. You always have to have something that you're striving for. I think that a good goal for everybody is work-life balance, and that's now that I have a family. I think that's a really important one. Don't give in. Even if you have a deep passion for the brand, make sure you spend time with those that are important to you. That's a good life goal, I think.
What were the type of games, just kind of a lighter note, what were the type of games that kind of you were into, and how have you kind of translated that into what you do now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think at St. Mary's, we used to spend a lot of time playing Madden and NHL, so which I think continues probably to this day at St. Mary's. If I was to ask that same question, that's probably still the case. maybe add Call of Duty in. Now we didn't have it back when I was in school, but yeah, I play almost all the sports games now, and increasingly after my kids go to bed, I can play some of the shooter games, but I have to set an 11 p.m. kind of limit for that because those are fairly mature. But yeah, I think those are the kind of games I like. But I get every game now, so I should try them all, and I have a big stack that I'm behind on right now. But I try to at least play a little bit of each. You know, there's a couple games that just come out. Uncharted 4 is one that is from us. We developed and published it here. It's just spectacular. So that's one that I'd recommend to anybody that owns a PS4. If I can make that public service announcement.
And then what for someone who's trying to get into this industry, you talked a little bit about knowing like what the mission statement and the vision is, and what sort of other advice would you give to someone who's trying to actually kind of like crack into the either video games or marketing specific?
Yeah, the biggest thing you can do is intern. I can tell you, like intern either at the undergrad level or at the grad school level in the company or industry you want to be in. Because oftentimes you'll meet people, you may not get hired by that company, you might, which would be great, but if you don't, you'll meet people and understand kind of the differences between academic and business, and they're big. Like the differences between those are very significant, and it takes a lot of time, I think, for people right out of school to pick that up. You know, what you read in a book is dated by definition. What we do here is in the Valley, particularly, changes every hour. It's very fast. It's quick. So I think the intern process is always something that I recommend. And when I go back to dining with alums, or we spoke with recent alums recently at an event, and that was the number one thing is people just want to know how you get into internships. And particularly here at PlayStation, we have a pretty progressive intern program. We try to bring people in and we try to hire them out of that. But a lot of times companies will say, we don't have room to hire you, but we'll give you recommendations on where to go. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is come in with a plan and solutions. I think we just hired a new head of brand marketing under my team, new director. He starts Friday. He came in with an entire case study on how he would launch virtual reality. That is phenomenal. And I realized that was for a director position. But when you come in, I think you want to actually have an idea and a view about the impact you would make. Don't just show up and say, I'm here and you need to service me. It's more of how can you service the company and the people around you.
All right, let's see. And how would you kind of best describe the best environment you've been in as far as like work environments, and what sort of like characteristics did it have?
That's a great question. A lot of it involves a boss who's hands off. I think someone who gives a fair degree of autonomy. I think you want to give autonomy to your team. You want to make them feel and own projects. I think everyone wants to feel like they've contributed and mastered something. So those are really, really strong attributes. I'd say that great collaborative environments. We've had a few of those here, and we're in one right now. It's a really good time here that everybody's communicating, everybody's collaborating, everybody's trying to get to a goal, everybody's passionate about getting to that win. For us, we go up against the big green monster of Xbox every month, right? So those are we all see that as a monster. They outspend us, we outsell them. We like that ratio. Those are things that we try to make sure everybody understands and feels like they're contributing. And that builds teams. So you want to feel, I think, as an organization that you've got groups that play well together and fit well and feel like they're all contributing to a bigger purpose.
All right. And then I guess kind of overall, from a career standpoint of like, what would kind of be one of the things that you would leave as a piece of like general advice to anyone who's getting out of school right about now?
Well, first of all, give back. I think people should do more of this, actually. Help those who are coming back through, first of all. I think that's really helpful. But, in terms of getting out of school and jumping into something, it can be pretty daunting because you look at the environment out there and the way people are hiring now, companies are hiring now, is really about who you know. It's much less around resumes and job boards and sites and things. And that can be difficult because you may not know who to go to and who to talk to. I think networking events are critical. I think things like I mentioned, internships are big. I think grouping up with friends who have positions in areas that you like and trying to get in with their group of people is helpful. don't ever feel like you should just kind of sit in the corner and wait, because that's right now, the way groups are hiring, it's very difficult to get the kind of position you want. If you like the gaming industry, or if you like sports, or if you like anything, you need to actually know some people there and actually get in and get your case. I like the idea, as I mentioned a minute ago, of coming with solutions. If there's things that you've researched and you understand that industry well, many people that come into gaming know gaming very well. Come in with like, here's a plan that I think might work, and don't be too proud to know that, or to understand that you probably don't know it all, and in many ways you won't, and that's okay. But just come in with a purpose, I think, is really a helpful thing.
All right. Thanks a lot, John, for getting a chance to chat with us for these past 20 or so minutes. For those of you watching, just be sure to check out the rest of our Gale Tales this month. Next week, we'll be having a story on Tina Sanchez, who works down at Infinity Ward on Call of Duty. And so she'll be at E3, and so we'll have a story on her. And then later this month, we'll have our first Snapchat takeover from Leia Luce, class of 08, and while she takes us around her Texas bakery. Again, John, thank you for getting a chance to chat with us, and have fun down at E3.
Yeah, thanks, and go Gales. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks.